All right, guys, welcome into another episode of R&R Talking Football. I'm here with my good friend, Ryan Moran, as always. And we're just excited today. Obviously, we are 10 days away from free agency, so literally right around the corner at this point. And we're coming with you today, basically our predictions for free agency and the draft. So, stick with us. Go ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, we got a whole entire mock offseason basically for the 2022 New York Jets. Very big offseason for Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh, and company for, Zach Wilson and this young team after a promising draft class a year ago. It's a big offseason that's, 10 days away with free agency. We'll run through a couple of, current Jets who could be released and whatnot, a couple of other cap casualties, and give our predictions there. And then obviously we'll go into free agency and a ton of draft capital that the Jets have.
Okay, I'm going to say this now. I'm going to let you probably start off free agency first, but I will say that I didn't really go for the big names. I don't think I have one guy who made, I don't think I have one guy that made a Pro Bowl on my free agency signings, which is, depending on how you look at it, I guess a good or bad thing. I just feel like I kind of geared toward I don't want to say the second wave of free agency because some of these guys will be signed like early on, but I think more so like maybe not the names that fans want or are expecting. I'm trying to keep it realistic. Obviously, I do probably think we probably end up signing one marquee free agent, but I didn't do that. So, but I'm curious to see what.
I think I've got one who would probably qualify as that. The rest are all kind of like, they are like not necessarily second wave players. Like they'll be signed on the first couple of days, but they're not like the flashy big time names. Mm-hmm. But before we get into free agency, I just wanted to talk about a couple of Jets who I expect to get released. Starting out with GVR, Greg Van Roten and Ryan Griffin. Any disagreements there?
No, totally with you.
So the big one, obviously, is Sheldon Rankins and what the Jets will do there. I honestly think what ultimately happens is a pay cut where they give him a little bit of money up front, so he's kind of guaranteed, but they bring his cap hit down to about $3 or $4 million.
Okay, what's it at now? 6, 7?
It's over 6.
Okay. Well, I'll give a little spoiler. For right now, on my draft, I actually have it in the second round. I do have a defense tackle being taken, but I have it as a slash because Rankins would actually – so I have 2 guys listed. So depending on how I felt like just talking about it, then I was going to make my decision on the spot. But I was I don't have many Jets re-signed at all in terms of our free agents. And the cuts you're mentioning, Rankins was one of those. Even in the back of my mind, even if he was kept, he's only on that 1-year contract. So, like, it didn't really affect my long-term thinking in terms of the draft.
And that's the way you should approach it, honestly. So right. I definitely think it could go either way with Rankins. I wouldn't be shocked. I think, though, if he is back, it's on a lesser cap hit. I think that's definitely fair to expect. So with the
sorry, before you – I might as well mention this. Instead of doing that, or maybe we could do both, I'd probably restructure Mosley as well, just to add whatever money. Because I'm assuming that he's going to be here past – I think he's going to be here for the next 2 seasons.
Right.
So, like, that probably makes more sense to push the money back a little bit into next year.
I definitely get that. I think the one thing with restructures that worries me, though, is just you do, like, raise the dead cap money down the road. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But I definitely get it. Like, for this year, it definitely can make some sense to bring Mosley's cap hit down. It's kind of – it works with me either way, regardless of what they do. So with the, most important Jets who are slated to be free agents, do you have any being re-signed? Foley, Berrios, and then some of the lesser names, the LDTs, Dan Feeney's, Tevin Coleman's. Do you see the Jets bringing back any of them in your mock?
Okay, so my mock, I have LDT coming back, Tevin Coleman, and our kicker, Eddie Pinero.
Okay.
That's it.
Yep. So I've got Tevin Coleman as well as like a third running back. Mm-hmm. I got Dan Feeney coming back, and Eddie Pinero as well.
Okay. Yeah.
I think the reason I didn't go with LDT is because obviously it'll be one of my first free agent signings. So. Okay.
I also signed a guard at free agency. I didn't care. I just brought him back anyway.
Okay.
So, but yeah, depending on who you signed, it makes sense. So let's go. I think many people will be shocked that we only brought back like 3 free agents. But, before we head into, I guess, the free agency period, just talking about our own free agents real quick. Like we talked about this in the previous episode, Foley's going to cost too much for me and probably for the Jets. I think he's gone. And Barrios is probably the only other one that's probably notable in terms of who our fans are wanting back. I just ultimately decided, like, just based on the mock draft, based on my draft, that he's not a number one receiver. He's probably not going to start. He shouldn't start here. And if there's major problems. So, we could bring him back. I'd still be happy, depending on the price. But I just kind of, I'm not saying to ignore special teams, because like we finally had a good returner and stuff. But in my mindset, I was thinking there's more important things that need to be addressed, and I just use my money, the cap, elsewhere.
Yeah, no, I definitely get it. It does kind of seem like unlikely Barrios will be back, honestly. So, so I guess we'll go into the free agents here.
Yeah.
The top 5 who are all kind of within those first couple of days. Obviously, I think the one big splash, I went with Amari Cooper.
Okay.
As a star wide receiver to add with Elijah Moore and Corey Davis. The right guard, I went with James Daniels. I think that there is definitely some, potential that the Jets could bring him in on a 4-year deal. And then the other 3, some lesser names, but really good starters. I went with Tyler Conklin, Jordan Whitehead, and DJ Jones.
Okay. Well, I hope your free agency happens, because mine's definitely not as exciting. I know me and you are both big fans of Cooper. That was kind of the news today, that he's going to be released, most likely. I would send a pick to get him. I wouldn't bank on. I think it actually hurts the Jets more in terms of like competing in free agency for him, because a lot of the times those players stay in the division. The Eagles, the Washington Football Commanders had interest in him only 2 years ago. You got the Eagles there. We got Jacksonville, and then depending on if he wants to go to a playoff team or not, I could see that happening. I would love Cooper though, so I'm not going to object to that. But yeah, your 5 names are probably bigger than anybody I've listed, or at least 4 names. The one that I'll talk about after I mention, I did think about trading for Bradbury. That was also kind of news today that popped, but we did this last night or the last couple of days, so I didn't have him initially. But maybe I'll change that in terms of corner I did sign for us. But
Okay.
I'm not even going to mention 5 at this point. I'll just mention I'll mention 3, because I don't have that many big ones, and then I'll let you kind of round out the rest of yours. I signed Austin Corbett to play right guard. I don't think it's it's definitely not a top flashy name. I think he's steady, obviously coming from the Rams. I also signed Tyler Conklin. So I think we both agreed there.
What kind of salary do you think he gets? Like $7 million, I was thinking.
Yeah, I was thinking like 7.5, 8.
Yeah.
Because I just seen
That's right.
who's going for 10.5. That's a lot of money. Schultz at this point with Cooper gone he's not making it to the market. So that eliminates him. And probably my third is DeShon Elliott, the safety from Baltimore.
Oh, I like that.
So I went back and forth, because we've talked about safeties a lot. I figured you were going to go Whitehead, so I wanted to do something different. I seen Elliott, the age is perfect, 24.
Yep.
So I was like, let me. And I know he's coming off an injury, but I don't care. Like he was kind of my big under the radar. I don't want to call him a splash signing, but he's going to be probably more than people expect.
Yeah, no, I like Elliott a lot, honestly. He's one of my top options as well. You mentioned it. I mean, with the age, the connection to the Ravens, obviously, with Joe Douglas, that definitely makes sense. He's a physical player, who can play free and strong safety. He's a hard hitter, and would definitely be, immediate upgrade at a weak safety position for the Jets.
All right, so you go ahead, because I don't think people are going to be very happy with my free agency overall. You know what it is now. When you kind of look at it, it doesn't look like that strong, but I feel like I addressed a lot of needs, and I feel like my draft, we have so many draft picks that I also had that in mind, because I also think Douglas wants cap flexibility even going forward. I don't picture this offseason as he might feel a little bit of heat, but I don't feel like he's on the hot seat and has to win a certain amount of games to being almost pressured into some of these signings. Now, granted, I do want 1 or 2 year moves to happen, because we all do. We all want excitement. I just didn't predict that to happen.
Yeah, no, I definitely get where you're coming from. It's really going to be interesting. I do think at the end of the day, though, like you said, probably one of those big time players gets acquired. Now, on the second and third wave of free agency, I think really, to me, what you're looking at as much as anything is depth on each side of the line, which I guess, bringing back a Dan Feeney, for example, you definitely kind of square away center, like he filled in for McGovern last year, as well as he gets guard flexibility. I think edge is probably someone, to have paired up with Bryce Huff, as a backup pass rusher, with Carl Lawson coming back from injury and probably another rookie, opposite Lawson. And then I think, probably even like a fourth receiver before the draft or like a fifth receiver, when you're talking about losing Braxton Berrios and Jameson Crowder. So any thoughts there on those positions as like, second and third wave signs?
Yeah, I'll just get into a couple of guys. You mentioned the trenches. Instead of signing back Feeney, I let him go in mine, and I signed Andrew Wylie from the Chiefs just because he has guard and tackle flexibility. He's experienced there, and I agree with you. Like, I do think the Jets, based on what happened the last couple of seasons, a lot of the injuries happened on the offensive line, and I just feel like for me, I added Corbett, I signed back LDT, and I added Wylie. So I kind of went, with more so, I don't want to say depth, but more so like Corbett's a good solid starter, and then I also added depth just in case anything happens if player has to miss a game or two. Going with that same message on the defense line for the trenches. Obviously, I let Foley walk, and you signed DJ Jones. I signed Jonathan Hankins. I didn't consider him a tier 1 free agent, but I do think he was really, really good with the Raiders last year. And I just think that someone's going to cost like 1/4 of the price of Foley, and it's a pretty big need for me. So whether I was going to address it here, free agency or the draft, I needed a defense tackle in here. So he's one of the other ones I added, and then one more to the trenches. I also added Bilal Nichols from the Bears. That's
a big name.
Yeah, kind of another defense tackle, defensive end. I just feel like Saleh loves loves his versatility. And since I also was very unsure what was going to happen with Rankins and I let Foley walk, I kind of doubled down here. Same thing with the offensive line as I did with the defensive line.
Yeah, I like that approach a lot. Starting for me with the offensive line, I would say, with Morgan Moses likely going elsewhere, I think signing a third tackle, just because of, unknowns in the draft all the time. I think, with the injuries to Becton and Fant, you'd like to have some quality insurance with the veteran on a 1-year deal. I look at like Chukwuma, Okorafor from the Steelers. He's a young, good athlete with experience the last 2 years. And then on the defense line, obviously, like I said, I signed DJ Jones. I like the Jonathan Hankins move by you. And obviously you expect to address it in the draft for the long term. 2 other versatile players, like you said, like Bilal Nichols. Thoughts on guys like Rasheem Green, Arden Key?
Yeah, I love them. I actually looked at them like that was through the list. I just have a hard time like Rasheem Green, for example. I think is someone who's actually going to get paid a decent amount, like maybe like toward that 7-8 million, just because of like how much better he got this season heading into free agency. So I don't know if the Jets have the money to do it. I just don't know if they're going to allocate all of that toward the defensive line. So I figured like I don't want to call it cost effective, but I just felt like Nichols would be cheaper and Hankins, so I kind of went that route. But I'd be more than happy if we signed either of those 2 players.
Yeah, I'm with you all the way. Did you have anything in the back 7 in terms of second or third wave players? I think you said a corner.
Yeah, so I'll round out my free agency. I only have a couple guys left. In corner, I almost want to switch this to Bradbury, but that's probably going to cost a draft pick. So I'll leave it as it is, even though I'm kind of hoping for Bradbury in the back of my mind. Obviously, the news broke today that J.C. Jackson is probably going to hit the market. That'll be great, but I didn't mock him for us.
Mm-hmm.
I gave us Kyle Fuller.
Okay.
And it might only be a 1 or 2 year deal. I know a lot of people, point to the Sherman stuff with when Saleh got there with the Niners and Shanahan. I kind of view that in the same kind of light. Not that Kyle Fuller is Richard Sherman, just kind of adding that veteran corner to the unit for a year or two. And it still made my draft really, really flexible. And he's kind of the player we need in terms of like a guy who's gotten, multiple interceptions in multiple seasons and made a Pro Bowl or 2. And I think he has fallen off a little bit, like for sure. But at the same time, like I said, this is probably a 2-year deal. This isn't anything long-term, and probably, like I said, this doesn't change my draft because you'll see what's coming. But just in terms of free agency, that's kind of my big signing, I guess, at corner, my only signing at corner. But just to round out the group, I also signed Jaquiski Tartt from the Niners. So I added 2 safeties. I had DeShon, Elliott, and Tartt. Obviously, Elliott's my long-term option. Tartt's for same thing, flexible year or two, guy that knows Salah's system. Year 2 of Salah, I feel like Salah's going to want to really get it rolling. So, like, you can't always rely on the draft pick right away. So, and then I also signed Will Dissly. So I have a pretty common theme. I double down on a lot of positions. So I double down on offensive line, well, triple down, double down on the defensive line, double down at tight end, and double down at safety. And just that my last 2 signings I have are 3. Nicholas Morrow, the linebacker from the Raiders. I just feel like there has to be something added to this unit. Obviously, Jared Davis failed. Sherwood missed basically the entire season coming off an Achilles injury. And Nasruddin, we didn't see really anything. So, and obviously you're hoping for the best, but we both preach, I think, that we need linebacker help. So I feel like he kind of fits the mold of our kind of defense where he's a lighter linebacker, but good coverage skills. So I think that would be a nice signing. Someone me and you both wanted last season. And then I also added a fullback. I added Pat Richard. Maybe you can count him as a tier 1 free agent from the Ravens. We've been kind of hoping for a fullback for the last couple seasons, and it really hasn't happened. And then my last signing is just kind of a depth signing. So I did have a receiver. I'm sorry, but this is more so like a 5th or 6th string and a guy that's familiar with the system. I just signed Richie James from the Niners.
Yeah, I like that. To follow up what you said at corner, I like the Kyle Fuller idea. I think there's a couple of veterans who, will probably be released. You look at Marcus Peters potentially. I've seen his name thrown around out there. Bradley Roby, a couple of guys who have the speed and the playmaking ability and man-to-man coverage, which I think the Jets could use. I actually went with the coverage linebacker early on in the draft, which will be fun. And then the last position I really wanted to discuss was some of those depth receivers. You look at MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Russell Gage, Adam Humphries, Byron Pringle, Isaiah McKenzie, Zay Jones, James Washington. I think there's really a multitude of guys out there who could come in and fit a role. Really as like a 4th receiver. The Jets invested a ton in Keelan Cole last offseason. Yep. And I liked it, as a depth receiver. And I would definitely like to see them, add one of those types of players again.
Yeah, I think I'd say the Jets are probably going to add 2 receivers. I just went the other way. I added 2 in the draft, which you'll see. But I do agree with your sentiment. Like, I thought about that too. Like, Crowder's leaving. I think Cole's leaving. And obviously we can't count on Mims anymore. So that you lose like half of our receiving core essentially. And even in the back of my head, like, we're talking about long-term options and, just talking about free agency. Like, if Corey Davis doesn't have a good year, like, he's not guaranteed to be here past this season. So, like, when you're looking at our receiver room, like, Elijah Moore is really the only guy that you feel like is going to be here for at least 3 or 4 seasons. So, like, it just offers you a lot of flexibility just in the draft and free agency.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that being said, I guess you want to go into the draft?
Yeah, I'll start. Obviously, thank you guys for watching so far. I will add the names, I guess, and I'll list our free agency in the description so you can follow along. I know we're kind of talking, going through it. But for the draft, at 4th overall, I went Kayvon Thibodeau. I think it's going to happen. I feel like it's happening right now. I just feel like, the rumors about him falling and, a lot of the effort issues. I just feel like he's going to be a Jet. Like, I just can't see Salah passing on him. It'd have to be serious here as character concerns. And to me, I don't see that. Obviously, we don't know the guy, but just based on what's being said, I feel like it's a lot of like weird speculation and just weird stuff going on. And the only team that concerns me for taking him is the Texans in front of us. I don't think he's on number 1. I don't think he's on number 2. I think that's almost a lock. I'd even be willing to trade up 1 spot if I have to secure him. Like, I feel like, and based on how the combine's going and stuff, it wouldn't surprise me if Ekwonu goes 1st overall, which we've also said could happen. So I'm not going to be in love with the scenario that Ekwonu's gone, Hutchinson's gone, and Kayvon's gone, because then I don't really have a lot of great options at 4, in my opinion. So I'm hoping that, in my mock offseason, I'm taking Kayvon Thibodeau, and then my other 1st overall pick, and I'll throw it back to you to see what you did in the 1st round. So obviously I got the edge first, and a lot of people probably want me to go receiver now. I didn't. I did not. This one was tough. It really was tough. Realistically, I wanted to take Sauce Gardner, but I just don't think he's going to be there. So I don't. I try to keep this as realistic as possible. I didn't want to change it for the draft. So I went Trent McDuffie. So just like the Kyle Fuller pick, I kept my options very much open. I almost took Nakobe Dean or Devin Lloyd here. I was really thinking about it, but I don't agree with people who said, I've been talking about this since the start of our podcast, that a secondary wasn't important, because to me, I'm adding a lot in terms of the draft and free agency to both positions. So, but go ahead. Maybe we have the same first round. I don't know if we do we?
We 100% do. I went with Kayvon
Wow.
Thibodeau and Trent McDuffie as well.
Okay,
Which
that's
is
a
why I'm
surprise.
sitting here laughing.
To everyone watching, we didn't go over this at all in terms of free agency on the draft. So
not at all. So that is pretty hilarious. Kayvon, you said it best. I just think the talent, adding him to a defensive line on pass rushing downs with Carl Lawson on the opposite edge, with Quinnen Williams, and now the luxury of putting John Franklin Myers inside, I think gives the Jets a front four that can absolutely dominate games in a system where it's really needed. I think Kayvon physically has all the ability. You look at the athleticism, the size, the speed, the power, the bend, the dip as a pass rusher on the edge. And he's honestly, I've studied him on tape. I studied like 6 or 7 of his games. In 2020, I thought he played the run really well. I don't know if last year he fought an injury or whatever, but he played the run well last year. I thought. And then with the 10th pick, I'm with you. You look at what the Jets did last year with Elijah Vera Tucker, Elijah Moore, Michael Carter. The one thing all three of them have in common, like they were very safe prospects with very low bust, rate. And I look at Trent McDuffie in that same light. I studied 3 of his games. My main takeaways were his long speed. I mean, he never gets beat over the top. He's a physical, tough, competitive player. He takes really good pursuit angles. He's competitive, when he comes up and tackles in the running game. He plays with good patience. He's got good, athleticism on the move, short areas, change of direction. And to me, I think the Jets, I didn't have the Jets going with the corner in free agency. Obviously, I had them going with a receiver and a right guard. So obviously those were really out of contention for me here, which made it pretty easy. And I think McDuffie, there's a good chance he's there at 10. I don't think Gardner makes it.
Yeah, I totally agree. You mentioned like a safe prospect. That's also the reason why I took him. I kind of wanted to take Stingley though. I did. I was tempted, but I just think, this is not that Douglas is on the hot seat. We said that. Me and you both agree that he's not, but I do think we have to start adding like safe prospects. And Stingley either going to be a home run pick or just someone who's not going to play very much. So would I be mad if the Jets did it on draft night? I'm not sure, honestly. At 4, I would be, but at 10, it's a different story. Sometimes it is worth betting on that upside. But for right now, I went with McDuffie. Kind of, I guess, like you said, you didn't sign a corner, so I kind of doubled down there. And before we head into the second round, I'll just say why. There's been rumors coming out that the Jets view Eccles as a higher ceiling than Hall, and maybe this is me just looking ahead. Maybe that's just a like almost like a misquote or like a misrepresentation of how they actually feel. But if that is the case, like this, I'm not saying it's a Mim scenario, but in the back of my head, not in terms of like how he's going to play, but that doesn't seem to me like you have much faith in the cornerback room, in my opinion. If that's the way they viewed the room, and like Denver did it last year, where like they almost tripled down, where they signed 2 corners in free agency, and then you thought no way they're going to go corner 9, and they took 13. Now I didn't go to that extreme, but I did add 2 corners, so just my line of thought.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I mean, even hearing like Isaiah Dunn in that conversation with the way I thought Eccles and Hall really surpassed expectations last year. But at the end of the day, I still think, obviously I went with McDuffie, who I think has, that cornerback 1 ability as a shutdown playmaker, that top guy for you. I still think for next year and possibly for the long term that Hall or Eccles can be a long-term outside starter. So.
Yeah, so do I. And maybe I'll be wrong here in that case where I kind of have 2 corners, but I think there is something to say when you have 4 top 40 picks, and it's kind of the way my free agency went. I just feel like it offers you flexibility. If they would have went a linebacker here, I would have been totally fine as well with that, or a wide receiver.
Obviously, I love Drake London, but with me signing Amari Cooper, obviously that's kind of out of the question here.
Yeah. But you didn't need him, but I guess my free agency did. but I'll let you start round 2.
All right. So with the second round, obviously the Jets have 2 early picks once again. I addressed defense again, actually, with both picks, and then later on I addressed the depth offensively. I went with free safety Daxton Hill, and I went with a linebacker, maybe a little bit of a reach, but I'm looking for specifically someone who can play in coverage, and I went with Chad Muma. I think when you look at Daxton Hill, the speed, the athleticism, the versatility to play single high, which in this role, obviously, I signed Jordan Whitehead to be the strong safety. So I think having Hill in that free safety role makes sense. Really had a productive year at Michigan as a junior. And then with Muma, I think Dean and Lloyd are both going to be off the board. And to me, the Jets need somebody who can play in coverage. I think Christian Harris, Leo Chenal, Brian Asamoah, some of those guys maybe are better prospects. But here I was specifically looking for someone who on third downs can, be that second linebacker with TJ Mosley and playing coverage. And I think Muma's got good, really, he's a safe prospect once again, coming back to McDuffie, Elijah Moore, Michael Carter, Elijah Barrett Tucker. And so I'm early on here. I went big in free agency offensively with the receiver, right guard, and tight end. And then I'm obviously going defensive heavy here with the first 4 picks.
Yes, people are going to hate on you for taking 4 defensive players in the top 40. But I do have a feeling it might end up being 3. That's the way I predicted it. Just a quick question, was Muma the third linebacker? I mean, I know you didn't go mock draft for each team, but I'm guessing that he's probably the third linebacker taken in the draft, right? In that case, if it's at 38.
I think there's maybe a chance Christian Harris goes before him. Maybe.
Okay. Were you sticking at 38? Were you moving down to 50?
I would preferably move down from Muma, but in this case, I just think he's so much better in coverage than Harris is. I think Harris is just he's obviously better than him, but his talent is similar to Quincy Williams, for example. I'm just trying to get a complementary skill set. So
yeah, no, I'm a big fan of Muma. I wanted to take him in my draft. I didn't end up getting the chance to because realistically, I don't think he makes that around 2. So I just didn't have the ability to take him. So at pick 35, I went wide receiver. I just think it's kind of the sweet spot. And I went Christian Watson. So I made this before the combine. He might not even make it here. Just the combine he had. Just someone that was at the Senior Bowl, someone with ridiculous everything, athleticism, height. It just kind of all works. And I know he went to a small school, but someone who really showed out during the Senior Bowl, blew up the combine. Just he has that rare stuff. And he kind of did everything in college as well. He took reverse handoffs, and obviously he ran a lot of routes. He just kind of, and obviously he's a freak in terms of size. He's 6'5" or 6'4". So just kind of everything I wanted, and the kind of receiver I wanted for this offense. So it kind of ended up working perfectly here. My other option, if he did end up going around 1, I think would be George Pickens. That's who I would have taken here if he wasn't on the board. Because obviously in my scenario, I really needed to go receiver, or Jeff fans would have killed me. Maybe Jahan Dotson would have been the other one in terms of, I don't know if he'll make it here on draft day, but those are the kind of 3 I was looking at in terms of the top of the second. No one else really crossed my mind in terms of receivers at that spot. And then going back to the beginning of the episode, I mentioned that I had 2 players taken at 38, where I had kind of the slash. At first, I put Devontae Wyatt. I'm not sure even he makes it here, but I just kind of went with a gut feeling that he might. But obviously, I added Hankins and free agency. I added, Thibodeau to the line, and I added Bilal Nichols. I think Nichols is the one that's going to end up, and I'm keeping Rankins, I believe. Maybe I'm not. But even if I'm not, I still added Nichols to this unit. So I'm going to go with my second player. I'm going to go Jalen Pitre, the safety from Baylor. Another riser, a player that the Jets got to see at the Senior Bowl. And like I said with Tartt, that's a short-term deal, kind of like my thinking with Kyle Fuller. And then my safeties are Elliott and Pitre going forward, and I still have Tartt. I have no confidence in Ash Davis. I wouldn't care if he's traded draft weekend. So that's just, if it happens, it happens. So he didn't really factor into my long-term approach for the safeties, and neither did
same here,
any of our safeties. So I added 3. What do you think about my second round there?
I like it a lot. Like I said, if I didn't go for Amari Cooper, I definitely would have drafted a receiver here with either the 10th or the 35th pick. I love Christian Watson. You alluded to all the points. The 6'4", 210 frame, has 4.3 speed, which he clocked in at last night. You said even some of the stuff around the line of scrimmage with the jet sweeps, what he can do with the ball in his hands. Ironically, later on, I'm drafting a receiver with kind of some similarities to Watson. So I definitely like his game. And I like where, you were kind of thinking with George Pickens along those same lines. Yep. Another 6'3", 200-pound target who can really, make big plays, contested catches down the field. And I love Jahan Dotson as well. Obviously, the other guy you alluded to there. Great blocker, reliable hands, speed. And then your 38th pick with Petrie, he was somebody who I actually talked about in my article the other day. His stock has gone up a ton. I love that duo there of him and DeShon Elliott, possibly. I think that they're, Elliott's obviously a little bit more of your traditional free safety out of those two. I think Petrie specifically you'd like in the box, but two physical, hard-hitting players who would be exciting to add.
That and both of them have pretty decent coverage, which I wanted for this unit. So go ahead and take us into round 3.
Absolutely. So round 3, I wouldn't be shocked if once again we agreed here. I'm going with Jeremy Ruckert, tight end out of Ohio State. I think the Jets, I went with Tyler Conklin in free agency, who I think gives Zach Wilson a known commodity in the passing game right away, which the Jets need a tight end, which is why I think we both went with Conklin, just the production that he had last year. And here with Ruckert, I mean, you give Mike LaFleur 2 tight ends to work with, which he wants to do 12 personnel. Ruckert is just a mauler as a blocker in line, which is great in the system. And I think he's a really good athlete. He's got the size that you look for, the speed. And I think with more opportunities, easing him in here with Conklin in the passing game, I really like the tight end duo here.
Yeah, that's a great pick. So I do agree with you on tight end, but I did not take Ruckert. Not because I thought you were going to take him. I just thought, just based on how the rankings are going in the combine so far, it's on day 2 right now. Tight end ran yesterday. I just feel like there's a lot of maybe different rankings in terms of which tight end is ranked where. And it would not surprise me if Ruckert is actually taken at the end of round 2. So, and I feel like he could be even, I don't want to say the first tight end taken because it's probably going to be McBride. But you never know. It wouldn't completely shock me if it wouldn't even stun me if Ruckert was the first tight end taken. I don't think so, but it wouldn't throw me out something crazy. So I actually went with Isaiah Likely from Coastal Carolina. I just feel like, kind of the Jets are apparently interested in Jonnu Smith a year ago. And that's kind of my line of thinking. We both got Conklin in free agency. So I wanted, and Likely does block more than I guess you would think. He does do that, but I just wanted someone with athleticism. I just wanted someone to really stretch the field. And while Conklin's more of your traditional all-around tight end, I feel like Likely, and Conklin is a pretty solid receiver, definitely gotten better each year, but Likely, I feel like from what I want him to do in this case scenario as tight end 2, I feel like a lot of pressure to be taken off of him, and I feel like he could actually produce 400 yards in his rookie year, something like that, along those lines.
Yeah, I like Likely a lot. He's definitely one of my top tight ends in the production last year. I mean, in the red zone especially, he would make an immediate, impact from the jump. I think he had 12 touchdowns last year and over 25 of his 4 years of college. So we both went with tight end, which in free agency with Conklin, and then here, with Ruckert and Likely. So definitely a position that the Jets are going to have to upgrade probably through both, roster building opportunities between free agency and the draft. So now we go into the 4th round. I actually went with a similar receiver. This is probably a little bit of dreaming. I don't think he makes it to this point, but I still have taken him in some mocks here. So I'm going with Alec Pierce. I think the length, he clocked in at 4.3 yesterday, low 4.3s. You talk about 6'3", 210 pounds, can play as an X receiver, can play in the slot, can go down the field and make big plays, with the speed, with his contest catch ability. His frame would be a big difference in the red zone. And I think just kind of having him eased in there, like I said, you go Amari, Elijah, and Corey, and then kind of having him, to really ease in his rookie year. I like that idea.
Yeah, I love that pick. I don't think he's going to be there because he also jumped a ridiculous vertical. His his RAS score, whatever you call it, was I think a 9 point something. It's just ridiculous. And someone was also at the Senior Bowl. I know he kind of left, got hurt, but I do think he's going to be a riser, if not, or if he hasn't already. But if we were to get him, no matter what, even if it's in round 3, I'd be totally pumped up. I'd be very happy with that pick. Who else did you take in round 4?
My other one was from here on out, I'm just addressing the depth offensively for Zach Wilson and Michael Ford. I went with a potential third long-term third tackle here in Braxton Jones.
Okay.
Who I think, fits the zone scheme, had some good, success in college. And I feel like the value here does kind of make sense.
Okay. So I don't think that's crazy. I'm looking at it now. I didn't end up drafting an offensive lineman, which that'll probably get me
You
killed.
addressed it a ton in free agency, though. So
Yeah, that's true. I probably would have liked to. We didn't. I know we have a lot of picks, but at the end of the day, we have 9?
yes.
And then a lot of it I spent on more so like trenches and weapons, I guess. But my round 4, I went similar reasons to why you took Muma. I took Troy Anderson. So obviously more of a role player, but I kind of keep going back to the Senior Bowl. Obviously, we're not going to get all these guys. I don't think so. But I just feel like Anderson's kind of that same mold, like in terms of upside, in terms of like his coverage ability, even at this point. Obviously, he's got a great story too. So I just love the prospect at this point. Wanted to get him to the Jets, and I would love that draft pick. Obviously, at this point, I don't think the Jets, maybe they would, but a common theme throughout my free agency and the draft has been depth and like more so adding 2 at a position. I don't know if the Jets view the linebacker as that big of a need, considering we did draft Sherwood and Evelyn, and I added Nicholas. What's his name? Nicholas.
Morrow.
Yeah, Morrow. And now I added Troy Anderson. So I added 2 linebackers. I don't feel great about the linebacker unit at all, and I hope they do this, but I don't know if the Jets will. But when you do have, 2 picks in every round besides round 3 so far, gives you more options, gives you more flexibility to do stuff like this. And then I added another receiver. So I said I doubled down, even though I didn't sign one in free agency. I did in the draft. I added a Shrine Bowl guy, Kyle Phillips, UCLA, a guy who kind of another good combine day for him as well. But a guy who really crushed the East-West Shrine Bowl the whole week of practice. Seen a lot of the clips, and probably going to be more of a slot receiver for us. But like we said, Crowder's gone. I'm not bringing back Cole, and Mims you just can't count on. So right now on the team, like you can't put Corey Davis, make him a big slot. You can put Elijah Moore there a little bit, but more often than not, those are outside guys. I feel the same way about the guy I drafted in Christian Watson. So I feel like Phillips is actually probably, I don't want to say a day 1 starter, but a guy who probably get a lot more reps than you would anticipate drafting in round 4, I think, right off the bat.
Yeah, he's a really good prospect who's, had a, good process here for the leading up to the draft for himself. I definitely like that pick that you made there. Obviously, we both are addressing depth at receiver for Zach. You saw the way it was tested down the stretch last year. And,
Yep.
Like we said, the likelihood of Berrios and obviously Crowder being gone, it's definitely, wise to address the depth at receiver.
Okay. And then we have round 5, right? That's it? 2 round 5 picks?
Yes.
Okay. So this probably won't be, I'll save this one for last. It probably won't be the most popular pick. But my first one, I went Jerome Ford, someone who me and you are pretty big fans of. I didn't even consider taking him in round 4, but just I actually flipped. I actually did take him in round 4 initially, but then I seen what Phillips did at the combine, and just East-West Shrine Bowl game. I'm not waiting for that, so I initially flipped the picks. So Ford would be great. Someone who has very good athleticism for his size. He's kind of that bigger guy. A nice compliment to our boy Carter, and then we both brought back Coleman. So just someone to round out the entire unit.
Absolutely. So my 2 picks, the first one, we agree once again here on Jerome Ford, one of our favorites for a while now. To complement long-term, is Michael Carter's, 1B, which I think is perfect for Ford and great for Carter as well, to have a different style back with his bigger frame. He's got some size and a ton of long speeds. He had a good 40-yard dash time. He's explosive, fits the zone running scheme. And obviously with his speed, in the floor system, it makes him a good fit. And I even think in the passing game, he's got greater upside than he's probably getting talked about. Didn't get a lot of opportunities, but at the Senior Bowl, I know he showed some good things with his hands. He's shown he's a willing blocker. So I would love Ford. And then once again here, I'm addressing the depth offensively for Zach. And I'm going with one of our favorites again here at skill positions in Bo Melton, keeping the Rutgers kid local. He's kind of got some similarities, I think, to Berrios with the speed, the ability as a returner, as a gadget type of player, can play in the slot, can be used on jet and orbit motions, get the ball in his hands. And I think he's a dynamic threat with good route running ability as well. And I think Melton's got good upside as a day 3 pick in the NFL.
Yeah, I love that pick. Someone you both really like. That'd be exciting and good to get, especially if Barrios does leave, which kind of looks likely at this point. So the way I ended it, probably not a pick a lot of people will probably love, but I'm just so sick of not having a kicker. So I went Cade York from LSU. I just decided to say fuck it and just do it. Like we've been going years without a good kicker. Like bring back Pinero as a free agent, ended the year strong, but I can't bank on that happening. Like I want to be competitive ending games next year. Obviously, it'd be ideal if we could trade down 1 or 2 times throughout the draft to get a 6 or 7 round pick. But right now, as of today, we don't have those picks. So I went. I'm not saying comparing to what the Bengals did, but you've seen what a difference a reliable kicker can do for a young team and a young quarterback. So I just said screw it and let's go get a long-term kicker.
Yeah, I mean the Jets, since Jason Myers and obviously, before him with Nick Folk, I mean it's been pretty tough at kicker for the Jets, for the most part over the last couple of years now. So it definitely makes sense, and it'll be interesting to see if they actually go after somebody in free agency as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely with that approach. Probably someone I should have looked at in terms of free agency market, but I just kind of went the draft route instead. So obviously, you're not going to do both in terms of long term at the position, but. Anyway, thank you guys for joining us. This was a definitely fun exercise to do. We're obviously excited to see what happens in 10 days and obviously past that in the draft. But I will put our full list in the description box so you guys can see it. And then let us know, obviously, what you guys think or what you're hoping to happen. And we'll see you guys soon for the next episode.
Thank you.